Hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast, coming to you tonight on day 9 of the Australian Open from Tennis Podcast Towers, Melbourne, which is where we will probably be for the next 24 hours or so, quite honestly, because the forecast for tomorrow is predicting highs of 46 degrees Celsius, which is 115 Fahrenheit. Buckle up, folks. That is unequivocally don't leave the house weather. So it's a very good job we have a comfortable sofa, which is where you find us right now after, frankly, another day that hasn't delivered on the drama that we've been promising, which means another hour of promising you that the good stuff is coming soon, we hope. I mean, there's a case for leading the show with Roberts against Briggs.
Oh, that wasn't the good stuff.
It was competitive, though.
It was. Yeah, it was. I mean, we didn't actually score, but we did play points in preparation for the media 1-point slam, which is coming up in a few days. Maybe we can...
God, I'm excited.
Maybe we can lead that show with that. No, that's women's semi-finals night. That's going to be an amazing day. It's coming. The good stuff is coming. I think.
I've taught you well, Matt Roberts.
I've found it very odd. Like, at the same time, I've been searching stats on tournaments where so many seeds get to this sort of stage of the event, and you would immediately think, oh, well, if you've got all the seeds, you're going to get competitive matches. And then, like a day later, I'm researching tournaments where all the matches are ending in straight sets. Like, it's really, really bizarre what's happening at this tournament.
Yeah, and just to underline how unusual the situation that we've got is, this is the first time in the Open era that the top 6 seeds have reached the quarterfinals in both the men's and the women's draws. That means, David, that nothing even in your deep, deep well of tennis memories has happened like this before. It has to get good, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, this is the thing. Because of the nature of the last couple of days, the lineup on paper feels like we've been pitting really good player against really good player, like at the top end, or at least, you know, as good as it can get in those sections. And yet they've kind of all been, I don't want to say duds, but they haven't been dramatic.
Ooh,
you know,
some of them have been duds.
No, some of them have, but I don't want to take away from players that have played really well and just been too good for the other player. But as spectacles, as things to really get your teeth into and feel your heart beating fast about, there hasn't been a lot of that.
Well, I watched some of Briggs versus Roberts and my heart was beating moderately fast. They both, when I started filming for content purposes, they both immediately tensed up. It was really fun.
Their hearts were beating fast.
They got tight.
My heart was beating fast on the sofa watching the Seahawks.
The pressure of 50,000 Instagram followers watching you play.
Yeah, it's not as bad as when you film my golf swing. I have more confidence in my tennis swing. Both fall apart under the bright lights of Instagram.
Not on Thursday, though. I'm going to make a sign. We've got big plans for the media 1-point slam. Big plans to ramp up the pressure on Matt's young shoulders. It's going to be great. And if the tennis in the main Australian Open continues to be crap, then we've got the media 1-point slam to talk about on Thursday, folks. That's a banker. And
I did decide to channel Joanna Garland and serve if I get the opportunity. That's what I learned from my hit with Briggs. Hopefully other media members aren't listening to this and realising my tactics.
Yeah, I think you might have slightly cocked that up, to be honest, Matt. You know, revealing your tactics on a
or maybe I'm bluffing.
Our other tactic is that David's going to heckle the opposition.
Well, that's definitely happening.
I'm going to be there with a Andreeva-esque sign.
Senor Roberts.
Yeah. I'm open to suggestions about what else to put on the sign. My plan is to try and buy some sort of craft materials over the next couple of days, but tomorrow it's going to be too hot to leave the flat. So that's going to have to be a Wednesday job. In terms of today, where to start? Should we start with the defending champion going out of the women's draw today. 6-3, 6-4 for Jessica Pegula over Madison Keys. Incidentally, just in the women's side of things, it's the first time that the top 6 seeds have reached the quarterfinals of a slam for the first time since the 1998 US Open. It hasn't happened in the Open era combined across men and women, but women alone, it hasn't happened since 1998. And, Pegula was, to my eye, the same as she's been throughout this tournament. Excellent, solid, dependable, deceptively hard-hitting, plenty of depth. Keys just never got going. She never got a couple of moments where it looked like she was getting those big swings and bringing them to bear and starting to play the match on her terms, but they never translated into a proper surge, David, like we saw last year.
No, and not like when they played at the US Open a couple of years ago. And in the words of Jessica Pegula that day, I got waxed out there today. Just didn't have a play on the ball. And because that's what Keys can do to you. She can make players like Pegula a little bit just there, really, to be teed off on. But all the way through this tournament, Pegula has looked convincing, actually. I mean, I think maybe I've done her a disservice in that description, because I think she is becoming more aggressive. She is taking matters into her own hands more. She's never going to have the destructive power of Madison Keys, but not many do. But she certainly has more bite on her shots, and she sort of takes the initiative earlier. She's also got that incredible defensive skill of being able to read shots and get them back into play. And yeah, it was interesting that Keys is the defending champion. She's the more illustrious name in many ways, and yet I think most people thought Pegula would win. I'm not sure what the odds would have been for this match, but I think most people felt that Pegula looked the more convincing of the two.
Yeah, it didn't feel like an upset, did it?
No.
The head-to-head was 1-1 going in, and yet I don't think it even felt like an upset to Madison Keys, really. I mean, obviously they're good friends and podcast co-hosts, and I'm sure that helps with accepting the defeat. But I also think, I really don't think Madison Keys had any real expectations of herself defending this title. I think she's done a decent job. She's avoided humiliation, to use the David Law predictions.
At least one of us has, then.
And she's lost to an excellent player who she wishes well in the tournament and is happy to see progress. Like, I don't know if Madison Keys would have signed for it at the start of the tournament, but I don't think she'll be. I think she'll be pretty sanguine about that defeat, and she already seemed it in the immediate aftermath, didn't she?
Yeah, it feels like par, I would say, for Madison Keys reaching the fourth round here. And that stat about there being the top 6 seeds into the quarters of a women's singles major for the first time since the 1998 US Open, like, that is kind of the problem there for Madison Keys, right? Like, we talk about this sort of consistency era that the WTA is in, and there's a lot of big names at the top who are regularly performing at the big events. And last year at the Australian Open, Madison Keys managed to run through a lot of them to be able to win the title. But that always felt like a bit of a one-off title run in terms of its brilliance. Like, it was staggeringly good, and she was going to have to do something similar again if she wanted to win it, because there's a group now of players who are, getting to the latter stages of slams all the time, really consistent. It's very, very hard to win majors at the moment on the WTA tour, because there's just a group of them, and we've got all of them really making the latter stages here. And yeah, I think Keys crucially looked a lot better at this tournament, and has done at the start of this year, than she did at the back end of last year, when I think she was pretty burnt out and injured, and now she feels ready to sort of go again in 2026. But really, it was over, this match for Keys, as soon as the forfeit was Pegula wearing a Chiefs jersey, because that was never going to happen. She was never going to allow that to happen.
That forfeit seemed a lot worse than the Keys one. It didn't seem to be a balanced deal.
I agree. Keys has just got to eat something
that sounds
apple
sort
pie
of
or
all right.
something.
Apple pie with cheese on. Like cheese and sweet stuff goes. Like you serve grapes with cheese. Like that's fine.
That's fine. But
Yeah.
Jessica Pegula can't wear a Chiefs jersey.
No.
You're not going to wear a Brentford one, are you?
Absolutely not.
If you lose the 1 point slam, you will be.
No, I won't.
It's all right. He's going to win the 1 point slam. We're fine. We are fine. In terms of that group you mentioned consistently reaching the latter stages of slams, so many of them are American. And okay, we've got a surprise one doing it this time in Iva Jovic, but you've got Jessica Pegula, Amanda Anisimova, Coco Gauff, of course, and Iva Jovic, and that makes it 50% Americans in the women's quarterfinal lineup, which is pretty amazing. And it's another American next for Jessica Pegula. It's Amanda Anisimova. She beat Wang Jinyu 7-6, 6-4 on what the stadium announcer called, while we were in there, the People's Arena. Well, Matt Roberts and I are not the people.
I've got Catherine on board now.
It is bad. It's absolutely fucked up my back, the John Cain Arena. The seats are uncomfortable. There's a weird sort of hum. There was some aggro in the media seats. There was a weird sort of...
Hold on, you should have been loving it
There
then.
was a weird perspex screen. In fact, there were two perspex screens between us and the court.
Yeah, why did they have those? I wondered that last year.
I think because it's not a tennis arena.
Right.
Anyway, I enjoyed watching Amanda Anisimova. Was it worth 2 sweaty hours on the John Cain Arena? Borderline. I was relieved there wasn't a third set, put it that way. But she had opportunities, Matt, to maybe get this one done more quickly. It felt like the second set was going to be a slam dunk for Amanda Anisimova. In fact, when they were playing Twist and Shout at the change of ends and doing the twister cam, is that what they call it? Where they put the camera on people in the crowd and get them to do the twist. They whilst blasting out Twist and Shout, which is an absolute banger. Between the verse and the chorus in the song, the announcer came through and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Wong is now receiving a medical timeout." And then the chorus.
It was surreal.
The chorus came in. So yeah, Wong was a little hampered in the second set, and her challenge looked to have really waned. It felt like one to just get through for both Amanda Anisimova and for us, Matt.
It was quite an unusual Amanda Anisimova match because the first set ended up in a tie-break and there'd been no breaks of serve. And for any regular watchers of Amanda Anisimova, they will know that her serve can sometimes be a little vulnerable, and her return game is usually absolutely elite and dangerous. And yet what was happening here was that Anisimova was cruising through her service games pretty much, but getting quite angsty and stressed and overhitting on the return. Like she was trying to force it, I think, in a way that she probably didn't really need to, because she did have the advantage in the matchup with just her bigger game. But as long as that nervous energy existed in that first set, it felt tense. And Wong played well and could well have won that first set tie-break, to be honest. But came up with a bit of a dumb approach on the set point. You know, she had a short ball, Wong, and sliced it straight to the Anisimova backhand rather than the forehand, and Anisimova had just missed a running forehand on the previous point. Like, you've just got to go to the forehand on that one. But of course Anisimova perfectly hit the backhand pass cross court, took the first set, and then they exchanged breaks at the start of the second set. And then Anisimova got another one and then held for the rest of the match. And actually her serve down the stretch, Anisimova, was excellent. And she talked in press about how she has been working on it and trying to get more speed on it, more power. She thinks she's already got the precision. But she said today was the day that it really felt like it clicked for her.
Which could be a big deal.
Definitely, if she can have a serve that's clicking in the latter stages, that could be the thing that gets her over the line in this major compared to her 2 finals at the end of last season, where I think, the Wimbledon final was a bit of an anomaly, but it certainly let her down in the US Open final, that shot, and she's going to need it against the best players and the best returners. So, yeah, overall, I would say it was a good performance from Anisimova, and in quite grueling conditions. It wasn't really extreme, but it was. I think the heat index was hovering in the 3-point something, pushing up to 4 during that match. That they weren't a million miles away from stopping. It was.
Matt said, "What's that whirring sound?" It was my neck fan.
I was ready to blame the John Cain Arena, but actually it was Catherine sitting next to me. No, it was another good performance from her.
And that improved serving could be critical for her to try and keep that up in 2 days' time, because it's Pegula next, and she's got this really poor record against Pegula. Pegula has been a problem for her.
Handcuffs her, from what I've seen in the past.
Yeah, they haven't played since the Canada final of 2024, and they also played in Charleston that year. And look, obviously, Anisimova is a different player, a different person since those matches. But I do think there is something in the matchup that is difficult for her against Pegula. I think, Pegula has a natural slice serve, which will be harder for Anisimova to get on top of than some of the kick serves she's just played. And Pegula, as David says, is very good at absorbing pace coming at her, I think, and she's able to stay very low to the ground, Pegula, and she's got good hands to be able to deal with pace coming at her. She's also happy throwing in short balls and slices and getting Anisimova moving. I think it is a really tough matchup for Anisimova, but not an insurmountable one, one that if she does play really well, I do think she can win. But Pegula is just a tough out. So she's gonna have to watch those stress levels, I think.
Do you think that Pegula is the favourite on paper?
It's a good question, because normally I do take head to head really into account for those sorts of things, but I would give I would say Anisimova is the slight favourite, because I just think form and the fact that those matches weren't against 2025, 2026 Anisimova.
She's so different, isn't she?
The movement is so different now for Anisimova.
And generally the way she carries herself as a player and believes in herself, I think, and she's been around the circuit now in multiple Grand Slam finals, and sees herself as that player, I think. But when I say handcuffs Pegula, I think the depth of stroke with flatness makes it more difficult to tee off on, in a way, for Anisimova. So I think, look, that could be the one. That could be an absolute belter.
It's a ball striking joy, that match.
And speaking of which, the other
Catherine's
quarterfinal.
not allowing herself to get hyped.
Well, look, I am. I've
been burnt before.
I've been burnt, 2 days in a row. Well, a whole tournament in a row, quite frankly.
I never run out of energy
with Joanna
for this.
Garland.
I always come back for more, even if I haven't had a body blow.
Well, the other quarterfinal set up today on the women's side, Elena Rybakina against Iga Swiatek. Rybakina was sublime against Elisa Mertens. The head-to-head going in was 6-1, so now 7-1. It was 6-1, 6-3 in an hour and 17 minutes, and this was another example of it being all about levels, David, because we've seen Mertens brush other players aside and be one of the form players of the season so far, and she just looked helpless against Rybakina today.
Yeah, you can get taken in by these things, can't you, if you don't remember what the matchup looks like and what Rybakina's level looks like when it's really required and when she's playing at her peak. I think with her, she's a player you can kind of go through a few rounds without really watching how she's got there. You just look at the scores; they've gone by serenely. You look at Mertens, and actually her scorelines looked different to what we've been used to. She was beating people comfortably, and she'd been on a good run, and she just runs into Rybakina, and she can't cope with that power, and her ground strokes and shots generally don't seem to have much effect on a player like Rybakina.
Yeah, and now we really get to test the level of Elena Rybakina in this tournament and the level of Iga Swiatek, because, look, the Madison English story has been a lovely one this tournament, but it felt very inevitable that it came to an abrupt halt tonight. 6-love, 6-3 for her against Iga Swiatek. She celebrated winning her first game like she'd won Wimbledon. And she's got this lovely disposition about her Madison English. She was taking it all in. She knows she's had the most wonderful experience, and the prize money that she's won by reaching the fourth round will be able to sustain her as a tennis player now for the next few years, and give her a real slingshot to discover how good a player she can be. Which is fantastic, but I mean, totally outclassed today by Iga Swiatek, who was clearly pissed off about not getting the day session match that she requested. We knew she'd requested day session today because Jim Courier disclosed that on the Tennis Channel this morning, which is very interesting. He said, "Hey, do you want an insight into some behind-the-scenes scheduling stuff?" And everyone went, "Yeah, that sounds fun." And he said there was a really big sort of good-natured, but quite a head-to-head between Channel 9, who wanted the Australian to headline the night session, and between Iga Swiatek, who really wanted the day session. We don't really know why, because this can't have been a match that she was particularly worried about, and she's going to have to play night session from now on. Like, it feels like getting in that kind of groove would be good for her. But either way, we know she wanted to play in the day session, and after the win, in about an hour and 10 minutes, she made quite a chippy comment about it in the on-court interview. She was asked what she was going to do with her day off, and she said, "Well, I don't have that much time because the tournament seems to want me to play it at night time." That was clearly on her mind. So I don't know what's going on there.
Honestly, I do think these players should just play when they're scheduled and shouldn't be putting requests in at all. I just don't believe in any of it.
Yeah, even Novak Djokovic?
Yeah, I don't think it should be happening. I mean, they should do it, but I think the tournament should be turning around and saying, no, we want this then. You play when you're told.
Yeah, look, I agree. But it's just never going to happen, is it?
Interesting that Darren Cahill said that Jannik Sinner was quite happy to have played anywhere. He didn't put any requests in.
Today. He disclosed, and he did one of those little interviews during the warm-up, I think, of Jannik Sinner's match on the second court this evening. He was scheduled not before 6 p.m. on the second court. Darren Cahill said that when the Djokovic match was effectively cancelled, when Jakub Menchik pulled out, that they offered Sinner the opportunity for his match to be the one that moved over, and Sinner said, "No, that's fine. I'm happy with where I am on the second court. Let's just stick with the plan." So enter Ben Shelton and Casper Ruud. More on them later. But Swiatek Rybakina, should we just give that a bit of hype?
That was a match here a few years ago, wasn't it? And Rybakina won.
It's become a very interesting head-to-head, I think, Swiatek against Rybakina, because there was definitely a period, 2023, 2024, when I would probably have said Rybakina is the most dangerous opponent for Iga Swiatek, besides Ostapenko, obviously. But, in terms of...
More on her later too, by the way.
in terms of, the just the game style and the smooth, big hitting of Rybakina. We just saw it cause Swiatek problems. And what's interesting is that actually, since Swiatek has started working with Wim for Set, her head-to-heads against a lot of the other top players have got a little bit worse. She's become a little bit more vulnerable against her fellow top players. But actually, the Rybakina head-to-head has totally turned around, and she's really started beating Rybakina quite consistently across surfaces. And I do feel like against Rybakina, we've seen slightly less of the just hitting from Swiatek. It feels like she's committed more to the counter-punching and the ability to stay in rallies and only really attack when she needs to. It just feels like she's got the blend of her game really good, really right against Rybakina when they've played recently. She has to play well, but she has done. And I don't know. As I said, like a couple of years ago, I might well have made Rybakina favourite against Swiatek on a hard court like this, but the way it's turned and the way Swiatek's sort of looked generally this tournament, I think I would probably have Swiatek as the favourite. But she does need to serve well, like that is a big element for her in that matchup, and she has done recently. But she needs to keep doing that. I think that's going to be an absolutely key shot. You cannot allow Rybakina to get on top of that.
So long as it's 3 sets, I don't mind. 3 sets of anything, please.
Or 2 belting sets.
Yeah, I do feel like we're owed some 3-setters, though. I'm collecting my debts.
One day we're just going to have a day full of them. And then it will be 4 a.m. and we'll be like, oh, it's too late.
Yeah, it'd be Thursday after the 1-point slam. Right, that's it for part 1. Join us in part 2 when we'll talk about the men's crap matches. But before we do that, of course, a message from our wonderful sponsors of the tennis podcast throughout the Australian Open, Steve Fergal's International Tennis Tours, who are celebrating their 50th anniversary in 2026.
That's nearly as old as me.
Yeah. Keep going, Steve. And he is going to keep going. He's got no intention of stopping. He is the premium hospitality
and experience
provider.
Oh, gosh.
And you've got another chance here, Matt. An official ticket and travel package provider of Roland Garros 2026.
Yeah.
You didn't even try.
I was saying it in my head.
Well then, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot. Why should tennis fans make a point of experiencing Roland Garros?
It's the chic slam, isn't it? Everyone's well dressed. Not that they're not. Not the Australian Open, obviously. But there's a style.
There are levels.
There are levels. There's a style to Paris in the spring. The clay is such a great surface to watch tennis on. You don't get as many duds. You get.
We need to stop promising no duds. That can't be on us. If people go to Paris and there are dud matches.
Clay is, what is it? Mary Carrillo says a clay court match is
tennis's classroom.
It's just the best.
It is the best, and the best way to experience it is by booking a package with Steve Fergal's International Tennis Tour. Not only is that a trusted and official way to book your trip, so you get all of the peace of mind that comes with that, but you also get 10% off your package. That is exclusively for tennis podcast listeners, whether you just want tickets or whether you want to add on premium hospitality options as well. Whatever kind of trip you want to have, Steve Fergal's can do it for you, and they can do it with 10% off. So just go to tours4tennis.com/podcast. That's tours4tennis.com/podcast, and the all-important code for that 10% discount is Paris10. We'll see you there. Welcome back to part 2 of today's tennis podcast, where we have just 3 men's matches to talk about, of course, because Novak Djokovic and Jakub Menšik was cancelled after Menšik guttingly had to pull out ahead of that match. Shall we start with Lorenzo Musetti beating Taylor Fritz 6-2, 7-5, 6-4. Every time I looked at this match, I thought Taylor Fritz didn't look physically fit. I think he's a heck of a competitor. I mean, I think that generally, but it was underlined today by the fact that he even managed to make this as close as it was, and yet it wasn't particularly close. This is Lorenzo Musetti's first hard-court win over Taylor Fritz, and that feels like a real milestone kind of for them both in very opposite ways.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because I think Musetti has made real gains in recent months. I think he was very proud of himself that he's come in with a new, more aggressive, assertive approach, using his forehand more, stepping onto the baseline more and not retreating so much. And he deserves to feel like that, because it's not easy to beat a guy like Fritz, even if he is impeded, and he clearly was. But at the same time, I mean, Taylor Fritz was a pretty depressing sight today, and I've got endless respect for him as well, because he is a real fighter. But, you know, he came in his press conference afterwards. We knew he's had tendonitis in his knee for months, and he's been trying to work with that and figure it out and stop feeling pain all the time. I mean, he seems to just be playing tennis all the time with pain, or having to dampen it with painkillers. But he also made it pretty clear in previous rounds that he was dealing with something else, and he didn't want to go into details with it. And once he was out of the tournament, he did give us details, and it was his oblique, it was his sort of abdominal area that he'd got some tape on, and he'd been struggling with that recently as well. He's had that before. I mean, that's too much. That's too much at a Grand Slam to be trying to cope with. So the upshot is, I think Lorenzo Musetti gives himself a crack at Novak Djokovic now, and I'm really interested to see whether he can take another step, you know, because this is a guy that's been around for years. I remember when we first saw him here winning the juniors, and how won over we were just by his style and what he looked like when he hit the tennis ball, and then when he came on the tour, it was exciting. But, you know, he's now gone from that to being a real factor, and looking like there's more than just decoration of a tennis tournament. But for Fritz, he's got to stop until this is right, in my opinion.
Yeah, just rounding off the Taylor Fritz of it all. I mean, it seems so obvious that he's got to stop, and yet, I mean, you asked him directly, David, and he was talking about trying to get fit in time to go to Dallas. Yeah,
which is next month, and is, you know, a lower level tournament. It's a good tournament. I respect he's committed to it, and he wants to play it, and he wants to play a lot of tournaments. I get it.
But he wants to win Grand Slams.
You can't have everything. If you're feeling like that, I mean, I just said to him, look, Jack Draper, Artifice, they've taken 6-7 months off. They don't want to, and it sounds like their issues are more dramatic than his are. But would he consider just not playing the sport until he stops feeling pain, until he stops feeling impeded? And he did say that had been the plan coming into this year, that he didn't want to play like this anymore. And then it crept up on him again, and then you're like left with a decision: do I play the Australian Open or don't I? And the view was that he could continue to rehab what the problem was on his knees whilst playing the tournament, and that would work. But he said, look, it has flared up again. I've had pain, and it's clearly horrible. I mean, he looked so down. I hope he stops until it's right.
It is pretty crazy with chronic things like that and chronic pain, how you can lose sight of how much pain you're in, how impossible it is to judge how much pain you're in. It's only once the pain is alleviated that you go, my God, what a fool I was to think I was okay. And it does sound and look to me like he's in that clouded zone, which is which is tough to see. Lorenzo Musetti, Matt, just picking up on everything David said about him, number 3 in the live rankings right now. It's up for grabs, Lorenzo.
Yes, and isn't there a line that unless Zverev reaches the final, the winner of Musetti Djokovic will be ranked number 3 at the end of this tournament? Which does really show you the strides and the gains, like you say, that Musetti has made. Like, for him to even be in that conversation, you would not have thought that a year ago. But part of that evolution and that growth for him has been evolving his game on the hard courts and making himself dangerous all year round rather than just through the clay court swing or through the grass court swing. Like, you've got to be good on hard courts if you're going to get up to number 3 in the world these days, and part of that has been the serve. He's been serving a lot better, having changed the technique on that. I think he's grown into that shot, and the mindset. You know, the going out there with an intent to hurt with that forehand, which is, I believe, one of the very, very best in the world. And combine that with his natural talents and a bit more belief in himself, which I think he built up through last season, and suddenly he's a very, very dangerous player. I also think he's a lot more mature as a person, and he's having to be this tournament as well, isn't he? Because his very long-time coach, Simone Tartarini, is not here. He had to fly home because of a family emergency, I think, and the same also for his physio. He is 2 key team members down this tournament, is Musetti. He has got Jose Perlas in the coaching box, someone he brought on and during the off season and is working with. So he has got a coach here, but you know, I mean, for Musetti to play a match without Tartarini is something that he's never really done. You know, they've been together for a very, very long time, and it just feels like he's able now as a person to cope with something like that much better. And look, Novak Djokovic has dominated their head-to-head, but they have had a lot of good matches. You know, a couple of them at Roland Garros, of course, when Musetti has really pushed Djokovic to 5 sets. And then most recently, their match in Athens at the back end of last year on a hard court was really one of the best matches of the ATP season, I would say. Both of them brought a great level to that. And Musetti talked about needing to win the match rather than play the match. I don't know, I feel like in the past against Djokovic and against some big names, he's had slightly happy to be there energy. And I think he's aware that he needs to not have that and show some fangs. And I believe he'll get chances against Djokovic. I do think his game and his movement, his physicality can hurt this version of Novak Djokovic. But does he trust himself in the big moments? And I think if he gets a bit of a setback, he needs to keep going with the game that is eventually going to get him through. Like he can't resort to being passive just because maybe being aggressive doesn't get him the first set, something like that. I could see that mindset being tested by Novak Djokovic, and I'm not sure I fully trust it, but it's going to be a big test of it, and I can't wait for it. Like the rallies in that are going to be wonderful.
Are you promising that it's going to be good? Is that what you're doing?
The thing is, I think you could appreciate that match even if it isn't 5 sets or 4 sets. I think individual rallies, I mean, personally, I can imagine being bewitched by just watching them strike the ball and move each other around, because some players have got that. I felt like that with Musetti and Mahatch the other day. But if it's knife edge, nail biting stuff you're after,
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
I think sitting here right now, my prediction would be Djokovic in 4.
Yeah.
And I think I could see them maybe like splitting the first two and the third being a real
at this point
humdinger.
I'll sign for that. I just want to feel some adrenaline pumping through my veins. Is it too much to ask for in week 2 of a Grand Slam?
It's not, no, but
we're going to appreciate it.
It's coming.
I think. I mean, unless one of them. I mean, unless Musetti shows up and just doesn't really compete properly, which I don't think will happen. I think he will. I think he'll play well. Whether it's enough is another matter. I think I'm going to enjoy it anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be beautiful. But adrenaline is what I'm after. I didn't get it from Jannik Sinner against Luciano Darderi. This was a weird match. 6-1, 6-3, 7-6 for Jannik Sinner, who came out, by the way, in white socks, white shorts and white cap. I think he's taken matters with Nike into his own hands, and I respect that.
It's a bit like
Jannik Sinner.
It's a bit like a football manager who picks 3 goalkeepers and puts on the bench when he doesn't feel like he's being given the right transfers.
Yeah, I don't know whether they're officially part of his kit or whether he dug the white stuff out of his training kit, but it looks a lot better. Still broadly like ugly, but slightly mitigated by not having the weird shorts. This was so weird. What a weird tennis player Luciano Darderi is. He was having a really bizarre crash out at the end of the second set, as if he was surprised by the opposition that he was facing, and then he took his hat off and post-hat Darderi started hitting the crap out of the ball. Obviously still lost the set, sort of flaked out. He had a bunch of break points right at the end of the set that would have left him serving for it, didn't take them, and then obviously got broken, and that was that. I know I should have found this match fun. I didn't find it that fun because the result just felt so inevitable. There were no real stakes or tension, which, you know, if it's not obvious, is what I'm craving just at the moment. But I think there will have been people out there that had a fun time watching this. There's a meme going around of the cartoon avatar version of Luciano Darderi. You know, that's something they do on the Australian Open YouTube channel, doing something really weird, sort of from the end of the second set, and it very much is a sort of representation of Luciano Darderi's contribution to the order of play today, which was bizarre.
Yeah, I don't think I looked up from my laptop, really, while I was writing the newsletter for the first 2 sets, because there was nothing going on. Then suddenly the third set got fun.
It was fun, yeah. Hitting the crap out of the ball is absolutely right. He upped his forehand speed from 130 kilometres per hour to 150. Like, just finding 20 kilometres per hour on average.
For the first 2 sets?
Yeah, I mean, look, you could argue he played this match backwards, right? You got to come out playing like that. It's not much good being 2 sets to love down and then doing that. That's just giving yourself such a mountain to climb.
Body language suggested he got to the end of the second set and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to have to play better than this, am I? That's a surprise. Here's that extra 20 miles per hour on my forehand that I've been keeping in reserve." Well, you're already 2 sets to love down to Jannik Sinner. What have you been doing?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you saw what happened to his forehand in the tiebreak when he went 2 love up, and he's committing to still hitting that forehand huge, and it went off, and there was one that just ballooned in the air as he shanked it. Like, it's unsustainable. Like, you can't keep that up. You can only do that for a portion of the match, and that's the power of Jannik Sinner. It's the power of the best players in the world. Like, They make you go out of your comfort zone to be able to beat them. And I don't know. I'm pleased that Darderi tried it. I agree with you. I think it would have been more effective if he'd come out playing like that and tried to rock Jannik Sinner, who I thought was actually a very good performance today. I thought he was absolutely sublime in large portions of this match. But could there have been some doubt or uncertainty or vulnerability if he'd been rocked at the start, given what happened to him in the previous match? It was still very hot when he took to the court today. But no, Darderi saved all the fun for the end when he was already 2 sets to love down.
And now Jannik Sinner faces Ben Shelton, who, just to give us a little bit of fun today, lost the first set. 3-6, 6-4, 6-3, 6-4 over Casper Ruud in the final match of the day on the Rod Laver Arena. He fancies himself in this quarterfinal against Jannik Sinner. I mean, I think he always fancies himself, Ben Shelton, but it's good, talking about our concerns for Lorenzo Musetti facing Novak Djokovic and the lack of real deep down in your core, in your veins, do you believe, are questioning that when he takes to the court against somebody like Djokovic. You don't worry about that with Ben Shelton, and I feel like tennis levels might hold him back from beating Jannik Sinner, but that's not going to.
He's certainly going to give himself as big a chance as he possibly can by going out there and swinging, rolling the dice, going after his shots. I think he's really confident at the moment. I think there's a bit more security about his ground strokes. I think he kind of knows what's coming off the strings more than he ever has. I still think that I don't think we've seen the best of Jannik Sinner at this tournament yet. And the problem with facing him is that he can suddenly make you realise, oh crikey, that worked against these guys. It doesn't work against this guy. But look, Ruud has been playing good tennis. I think he played quite a lot of good tennis tonight. He also put in some bad double faults and threw in some poor points when it really mattered. But what you said there, Catherine, about the fact that Ruud won that first set, that's the first disappointment that Shelton's had in this tournament, because he's been imperious up until then, and that could have derailed him, because he was a bit off in that first set. His serve wasn't working quite right. He's on the Rod Laver Arena. It's different. And he regrouped and he found the form that he's been displaying the rest of the tournament. He's developed an incredible forehand when he's pushed out wide, and he's just slapping this ball, but with control. And he kind of rescued a couple of points with that. He hit some good backhands. He hit some good volleys. He was incredible at the net tonight. Like, the success rate was very high. I don't exactly know what his best tactic is playing against Jannik Sinner. I'm fascinated as to what they cook up to try to achieve what they want. But I find myself thinking it'll be closer than last year's semi. I think he can make a fight of it, but there's a difference between that and winning.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Shelton this tournament. I think it's really notable and impressive just how consistent he is at the majors. I think, I don't know, I feel like against most of the field, Shelton has an advantage over best of five. He tends to make matches physical, and I think he can improve as they go on. I think we saw that tonight. I think he backs himself over best of five against the very best in the field. I think against a Jannik Sinner or against a Carlos Alcaraz, against the very best, I don't know if he's quite able to make best of five the advantage that it is for him against the rest of the field, because he's got to sustain such a level for so long and not have lapses, and I just think over the longer format, it's an obvious point, but the better player tends to come out on top. And I don't know, like if he can make it physical, if he can really push Sinner to the sort of 4-hour mark, maybe that is his best route. But I just don't know if he can get it there. Like he was good tonight, Shelton, but he did need those poor games from Ruud to break through. All of them really that Shelton won, the decisive games and those sets. Ruud played a big part in it, with those untimely double faults. His forehand went off. I just don't think Sinner's going to do that. And that might mean you end up in tie breaks, or, 1 or 2 perhaps. But again, I'm always backing Sinner to just sort of come up with the goods. So I'm being impressed with Shelton, but I've not necessarily seen anything that makes me think that match is going to be massively different. I agree it could be a bit closer. But it still feels to me like there's a gap there.
Just quickly, finally, on Sinner, he is one of 3 players that we've seen. There may have been others, but we've seen him, Carlos Alcaraz, and Aryna Sabalenka all being asked to remove their fitness trackers, their wearable health tech watches that they've come onto the court wearing. They've been asked to remove them at the coin toss, and this has been picked up on, and it's become a bigger and bigger story. A lot of people have been doing some digging into it, and in fact, Whoop, who is one manufacturer of these health tracker devices, they've picked up on it, and they've been tweeting and releasing statements on social media today. Whoop founder Will Ahmed described the Alcaraz decision as ridiculous, saying, "Let the athletes measure their bodies. Wearables provide meaningful insight into workload recovery, injury prevention, and clinical evaluation." That is from Dr. Robbie Sicker, medical director at the PTPA. They're starting to get involved in this as well. Now, the ATP and the WTA have approved the use of wearable health tech. They've got a list of approved manufacturers and suppliers, and all the big ones are on there. It is the Grand Slams who have unilaterally decided to ban this. And it does seem that they are acting as one and wanting to act as one. There's a BBC article that I'm reading that suggests that the Australian Open would like to approve the use of wearable tech, but it's sort of reaching a unified decision with the other slams that is the problem. I found that a bit bizarre because they're all happy to make their own decisions on things when it suits them. Again, pick yourself up and move yourself to October. That's a thing that you can do. I'm sure you can approve the use of wearable health tech. It seems pretty bizarre that this isn't permitted, something that is so obviously just normal in the year 2026, and secondarily so obviously beneficial to the athletes who are managing. They're going to be managing a 45-degree day tomorrow, playing stressful competitive matches. Those are conditions that you can't recreate in practice. The data that you would get from playing those matches would be invaluable, I'm sure. It has been suggested, and this hasn't been confirmed by any of the tournaments, but suggested that it's the reason for the ban at the moment from the Grand Slams is that the data ownership, the data generated by the health tech, and the commercialization of that data is what's at issue. And until it's kind of been determined who owns the data, whether it can be commercialized and monetized in some way, they kind of don't want to give it up for nothing if there's some potential value there, I think seems to be the situation. There's obviously also the potential for partnership deals with manufacturers, but it does. It feels so backward to be seeing this, to be seeing elite athletes going out there with things. I mean, I'm wearing one right now. I'm wearing a very primitive version of what Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner are wearing, but like it's just a weird look for tennis to be actively discouraging this.
Yeah, I wear one as I try to sort of deal with long COVID symptoms and things like that. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons health-wise why you would want to, particularly athletes at this sort of level, but anybody in the draw. This is affordable technology for all of them, and something that could really help them understand their body during matches, after matches, etc. I don't see this as being a sustainable situation. I think eventually they've got to figure this out and allow it. I would understand if they're worried about what if it was connected to some live database or something like that. But as Jannik Sinner's saying, no, this is just for me to have information about my body after the match. I think this should be allowed.
Absolutely. Hear. Okay, that is it for part 2. We'll be back in part 3 with everyone's favourite sensation of the day and a little cameo from Elena Ostapenko and Laura Siegemund. Welcome back to part 3 of today's tennis podcast, where I have 2 submissions for sensations of the day. I have Jason Kubler and Mark Polmans, who beat fellow sensations Lee Tu and James McCabe 6-4, 6-4 to reach the men's doubles quarterfinals. And I have Kim Birrell and Talia Gibson, former winners of Sensations of the Day, who beat Guo Hanyu and Kristina Mladenovic 3-6, 6-4, 6-2 to reach the women's doubles quarterfinals. Now, I would like to make a case for Jason Kubler.
Do it.
Well, I commentated one of his matches the other day in the mixed doubles. He was playing with Madison Keys, his fiancée, who of course played singles tonight against Iga Swiatek. And I hadn't realised what a horrific time with his physicality he had. He was an incredibly talented young player, another one that was described as a future Rafael Nadal. And of course, he has had results in singles, 4th round, I think, at Wimbledon a few years ago. But basically, he discovered that he had a severe degenerative knee issue. He's had 7 surgeries on his knees. He was told by doctors that he couldn't play on any surface other than clay. For 4 years of his career, he's been playing exclusively on clay. And here he is. I know he has won the Australian Open men's doubles title before with Rinky Hijikata, so this isn't new territory. But I just think that's a great story. And there he was in the players' box on Rod Laver Arena tonight, supporting Maddie Inglis.
And he won that doubles with Rinky Hijikata when we didn't have Sensation of the Day, so he didn't get his chance.
A backdated Sensation of the Day.
I think it's a good.
Yeah,
I can
good
get
case.
on board.
Good case you've made.
Okay, Jason Kubler. This is tough on Mark Polmans, his partner, isn't it? But there are future chances.
He gets it as well, no?
I was just going to give it to Kubler.
Oh,
Mark Polmans wasn't there on the players' box in the players' box watching Maddie Inglis.
No, if it's doubles, it's a joint award, surely.
I don't know anything about Mark Polmans.
That's enough that he's partnering Jason Kubler.
Okay, but Mark, know that you're riding on the coattails of Jason Kubler.
He's helped your man. He's helped the man that we've just bigged up.
Okay. Jason Kubler, and to a lesser extent Mark Polmans, you are our sensations of the day. Just while we're on the doubles, we should probably mention that the defending champions went out in the men's doubles today. Henry Patton and Heliavara lost to the unseeded Czech pairing that the Czech radio guys that sit behind us were getting fantastically excited about this evening. Petr Nusa and Patrick Riekel, who quite honestly I hadn't heard of, wasn't aware of, but what an upset they pulled off this evening. 2 straight sets over Patton and Heliavara. And while we're on the doubles, would somebody like to describe what Elena Ostapenko did to Laura Siegemund earlier today?
Elena Ostapenko hit a tennis ball at Laura Siegemund, sort of knee height, something like that, and it was volleyed back to Ostapenko, who then took a full-blooded two-handed backhand swing and smashed it into Laura Siegemund's face. I probably shouldn't laugh. I am happy to say that Laura Siegemund appears to be absolutely fine.
She's confirmed she's fine. It's okay to laugh.
It's okay to laugh because it was very, very funny. Given all the stuff that Siegemund has been doing to wind everybody up, and because it came from Ostapenko, who
there's some good gifts out there.
Yeah, I mean it was very amusing.
It was such a big swing at the ball. It was a full pelt Ostapenko backhand at Laura Siegemund's
from
face.
Really close.
Yeah, at close range. And all's fair in doubles, isn't it? And I think Laura Siegemund, she gets that. And if she doesn't, she really should. But I think she gets that. It's an incredible moment, and it is out there widely on social media if you want to see it.
And Shea and Ostapenko now face Dabrowski, Stefani, David.
Oh, our favourites. Yeah.
That's good doubles.
Yeah.
Okay, what have we got for you tomorrow? Day 10 of the Australian Open, and all the singles is on one court from now on, folks. We've reached that stage. The Rod Laver Arena starting at 11:30 a.m. Now, my weather app says that it's going to be 40 degrees by midday tomorrow, so I would not be surprised if all matches on the main show courts are played under the roof and play isn't suspended elsewhere. They are starting early elsewhere, I think, to try and get some play in. They've delayed the start of the wheelchair competition until Wednesday. It was supposed to start tomorrow, but won't be starting now until Wednesday. There won't be any play on the John Cain Arena tomorrow, but they are leaving the John Cain Arena, the public areas of it, open to the public because it's air conditioned, so that will be a kind of safe haven to go to, which is a smart move. But in terms of the Rod Laver Arena, 11:30 a.m. start with Arina Sabalenka against Iva Jovic, then not before 1:30 for Alexander Zverev against Lerner Tien, and that is the upset that people are picking in our newsletter predictions. If people are going for an upset, it does seem to be that one. I think it's hard not to have been completely taken in by Tien's performance over Medvedev yesterday. Night session, and this is the surprise. We were all expecting Alcaraz and de Minaur, as demanded by Channel 9, to be the headline match at 7 p.m. with the women shunted to the vibeless death slot. But good on them. Coco Gauff and Elena Svitolina starting the night session, and Carlos Alcaraz and Alex de Minaur last up.
Yeah, I think that's good scheduling from the organisers here to avoid a match potentially starting at goodness knows what time. It could be midnight. I mean, if de Minaur and Alcaraz play a really long match, you don't want a match starting that sort of time. It's just so this is a good move, because even if it's a really close match between Gauff and Svitolina, okay, Alcaraz and de Minaur may end up playing well beyond midnight, but at least they'll start at sort of 9:30 or something like that. I think it's a good order of play all round. It's going to be interesting. I personally, I don't see Jovic being able to go with Sabalenka. I would make Zverev favourite, even as convincing and exciting as Lerner Tien was. But I don't think Tien's without a chance. I really think he does have a chance, but I think Zverev's playing very well too. So fascinated to see how Tien handles that occasion, how Zverev handles being the favourite on Rod Laver Arena when he's played several matches on John Cain Arena. And then, the night session, I would make Alcaraz favourite and Coco Gauff probably favourite, but Svitolina was excellent yesterday against Andreeva. So it's going to be tomorrow. It's going to be the good one, Catherine.
Don't make promises. All I want from the night session is for nobody to be asked sort of well-meaning but slightly depressing questions about sort of the old ball and chain marriage vibes and what somebody that's earned $26 million in their career, how they're going to use their husband's credit card to celebrate winning. That's what I want from tomorrow, as well as some adrenaline pumping. Matt, any predictions?
Shouldn't be too much to ask,
It shouldn't be too much to ask, Matt. No. But do you see any upsets?
Well, in the newsletter, I have gone TN. I think that is the most likely upset of the four. Closely followed, I suppose, by Svitolina Goff. Like that, I think Svitolina. I think she's unbeaten this year, isn't she? She has played really good tennis to start this season. I just don't really see how she beats Goff in a very clean way, like blowing off the court sort of thing. I don't think she really has the weapons for that. And I back Coco Gauff in a tussle. I back, normally it would back Svitolina in one of those, but Goff is the one I back the most. So I do see Goff coming through that. I'm really looking forward to Alcaraz de Minaur. Like, I really do think that is going to be fun. But I do think Alcaraz's class will show, and he'll have just too much ultimately for de Minaur. But I could see TN Zverev going 5, and I could see Goff Svitolina being 3 sets. Like, I think we might get some matches going down, if not quite to the wire, then to a decider tomorrow.
I will sign for that right now. I will sign for that. Well, you think, Matt, you would think.
And look, I think, as you said, like, most likely these matches are going to be indoors. So, I don't love that, obviously. I'd much prefer the tennis to be happening outdoors. But in these conditions, get them indoors because it's going to be brutal. And that, I'm pleased that, I don't feel like the conditions are actually going to be too much at play tomorrow, right? I think it's going to be too extreme that they're just going to take the conditions out of it, and I prefer that rather than what we saw the other day, where it was quite a tough scene, looking how distressed a lot of the players were.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll be indoors in air conditioning, watching all of it. We might brave it in the evening, very much TBC, because it's serious stuff tomorrow, so we're going to be careful. We have lovely Gus, our mascot. I'm looking at a picture of Gus with her brother Tumble. They might be holding hands. The photo cuts off, but I'm going to imagine that they're holding hands, and that's absolutely lovely. Hello, Gus. Hello, Bodie, my mascot. We're in serious
Reggie territory.
We're in Reggie territory. Yeah, I've had to pivot with my strategy. We are where we are, Bodie. Swing for the fences. That's what I've always said. Things are going better for David and Maisie and Matt and Roger, because they're more sensible than I am, apparently. Hello to Greg, Chris and Jeff, our executive producers and all-around top folks. Matt, let's have some shout-outs.
We have Robin Hodge from Melbourne.
Oh, hello, Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Robin with a Y.
Like my friend's daughter, my friend's gorgeous baby, and like Robin, the Swedish recording artist.
That's where my mind went.
Like Robin Soderling if he happened to spell his name differently for a day?
I think we can allow that.
I think Robin will allow that. Wasn't there a Robin Montgomery?
There still is.
And I think that is the right spelling. Maybe.
Is it?
I don't know.
Well, Robin. There's Robin Daniels.
Of course.
Who's a friend of ours and who we worked with for many years.
Yeah, these are all... I think if you add all these together, I think we've done Robin proud.
Absolutely.
You're a
Thank
legend,
you,
Robin.
We've also got Madhumita from New Delhi, India.
Hello, Madhumita. We know Madhumita.
We do.
Big
Yeah.
on the barge.
Big on the barge.
That's right.
What a place.
Madhumita says, I started watching tennis in the mid-1980s.
Now we're talking.
Most notably Wimbledon 1988, when Graf and Edberg won their titles.
Oh, yes. Edberg's first to 3 titles. I remember it well. That was the Steffi Graf Golden Grand Slam year. What a year.
Thank you, Madhumita.
And finally, we have Kate Bradley
Hello, Kate.
Hi,
from
Kate.
Iowa City. And Kate says, I would love to dedicate my shout out to our lovely dog Bogart, who we recently lost. He was an
Kate, I'm
almost
sorry.
12-year-old, 100-pound Greater Swiss mountain dog. A trusty companion over the years for long walks while listening to the pod.
Oh. A lovely tribute. Thank you, Kate. I'm sorry to hear that, but that's lovely. I know of a Pyrenean mountain dog, but I've never known a Swiss mountain dog, but I hope to one day. Kate, Madhumita, Robin, thank you ever so much for your support of the Tennis Podcast. If you would like to become a friend of the pod, the link is in our show notes. We are part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Whether the tennis is good or not, we'll be back tomorrow. Please join us. Thank you for listening. We'll speak to you then.